Hello friends, AmyR here with Prairie Paper and Ink with another Snowflake themed card. I purchased the Simon Says Stamp Extra XL Snowflake stencil. I think this came out in their December release. I didn't get it in the package and of course I wanted it. So I ordered it. It just recently showed up and had to make a card with it. So in my last couple videos, I was using Simon's January 2023 card kit, and I'm going to use the stamp set from that kit, and I'm also going to use one of the inks. It came with the Pawsitively saturated ink in AEGEAN, and I mentioned how it's just a beautiful color, and for whatever reason, I don't reach for it often enough. So I pulled out that one along with the two lighter shades, because all of the Pawsitively saturated inks, there's trios of colors. So I pulled out the two other shades because I thought it would make just a beautiful blend, and I wanted to make a habit of using more of these colors that for whatever reason I don't reach for as often. So I took my top folding white note card, and you saw me kind of tape it basically to some of my grid paper, like my scratch paper basically. And I'm doing this to protect all the other areas of the card because I'm ink blending directly onto the card front, and I have a tendency to get ink. I get things everywhere. That's 99% of the reason why I always do things on separate, panels and then adhere them to the card base. But this time I thought, why not? So this is how I prevent making a huge mess. So I've got my, card base all protected, everything. And then I did just very simple ink blending with these three inks, working my way from lightest to darkest. So I've got TIDEPOOL, TROPIC, and then the AEGEAN, which on camera, always, and I've said this a million times, for whatever camera makes ink blending makes me look like I don't know what I'm doing. But these inks especially definitely soften and smooth out as they dry. They dry back a little bit. And you can see it in the finished photos too. It's more aqua than it's showing on, at least on my screen. These are looking way more green. They're definitely a green, but they skew a little more aqua, just a bit. So after I was done my ink blending, I pulled out some Gina K Glitz glitter gel, the iridescent one. This stuff, this particular jar of mine, I've probably had for about 2 years now. I'm not sure how long this has, been on the market, but I know I've had it for well over a year, if not two. Again, press and seal. That's what you can see is on the jar. Mine has thickened up a fair bit. I'm going to add a bit of distilled water. I just spray distilled water in my paste when I feel like they're getting a little dried out, and that seems to kind of extend it. But again, this jar is old. But it still works. So that's what I did. So I applied that over the stencil, this XL Snowflake stencil that I just taped down with some Post-it tape and whatnot. And I applied the glitter gel, scraped off the excess, immediately sealed the container back up. And then, like I said, later off camera, I sprayed it a bit with some just distilled water and stirred it in. I generally do this though when my pastes are getting feels like they're on their last legs. And it's like, because if it wrecks it, it's never wrecked it, but I'm just saying. Or if it completely changes the consistency. But a couple of spritzes of distilled water aren't, going to ruin it. So anyway, did all that, removed the stencil, and immediately cleaned my stencil on my palette knife. And then I'm going to let that paste dry. So while it's drying, this is where I've pulled out the Snow Love stamp set that comes in Simon's January card kit. This set is also available individually, and I'll have links to everything like I always do in the description box below the video. But I grabbed a scrap of doll pink cardstock. I used my anti-static powder tool. I inked up the stamp with clear embossing ink and stamped that onto the doll pink cardstock. Gonna cover that with detail white embossing powder. Gonna melt this with my heat tool, and then I'm gonna die cut this with a little circle wafer die. So once it's melted, I give it a couple seconds to cool down, and then I just wipe off that excess anti-static powder with my little microfiber cloth. And then I'm going to tape the wafer die in place so it doesn't shift when I run it through my die cut machine. So I've die cut my sentiment. I also die cut a snowflake, which I'll get to in a second. And my glitter paste stenciled snowflake on the front is now completely dry. So I'm now going to reposition the stencil onto the inside of the card. So once I've got that positioned into place, I'll just tape that as well. And then I'm going to use those same 3 inks to blend this onto the inside of the card. And then editing me is like, that would have made a really nice card front as well. Wouldn't have, you could do the ink blending just over the snowflake and then add all the other elements like I'm going to do. But yeah, that it would work. It would look nice. These colors are just, I don't know, there's just something about it. I really love them. So anyway, use the same 3 colors in the same order, working just lightest to medium to darkest, and just blended those over this stencil with my blending brush. So I was going to like stamp a sentiment, everything, but once I removed the stencil and I was like, I just loved how this looked. And I was like, nope, that's enough. That just kind of is just great. And the fact that I took a couple seconds to use my brain and line it up to how I stenciled on the front, it just ties it all together. I love when that happens. Doesn't happen all the time, but when it does, I love it. So I've got the inside stenciled, the outside is dry. So now it's time to just start assembling everything. So I had die cut some white cardstock with the SOPHIE Snowflake wafer die. I forget when this came out. It's been out for at least a couple of years, I think. I'm not even sure. But Simon, I've said this before. Simon has a ton of Snowflake wafer dies. At this point now, I think I own them all. I think these were some of the first orders I made from Simon. Like that really got me into their stuff was all these like Snowflake wafer dies because I love. So anyway, die cut the snowflake from white cardstock, adhered that to the center of the stenciled snowflake. And then I cut some little foam squares and I'm applying those around the perimeter of the center because I'm going to adhere my heat embossed and die cut little sentiment circle there. So I used the little foam squares as well as a bit of craft tacky glue, pop that into place. And then I'd gone through my stash looking at my bling because I have a bajillion different types of bling. Nothing was really like doing it for me in this shade of pink. So I just grabbed another scrap of dull pink cardstock and I die cut it with the Mini Hearts Party wafer die, which I used not the last video, the video before. And I was talking about this and how I keep all of the little die cut hearts in the packaging because they just come in handy and it's a great way to just, die cut glitter papers, cardstock, specialty papers, all those things. So I adhered those into place. Technically the card was done at this point, but it was bugging me the way the sentiment, it was just it needed a little bit more dimension. So I very carefully peeled it off, like carefully, because I didn't want to tear the entire card. So peeled that off. And then I just die cut a couple more scraps with that same little circle wafer die. And I'm going to adhere this to the sentiment. So it's just going to pop it up just a little bit, give it that little bit of dimension to finish it off. So once those are adhered, then I can pop that right back into place. And I'm going to pair this card with a matching dull pink envelope. And this card is complete. Just fun, kind of simple. Again, I love these 3 colors together. This ombre look, just, yes. Definitely need to do this one. And with the like punch of the pink, I don't know. That's fun. I know I didn't have splatter. You totally could. It would look amazing, but I was trying really hard not to go completely overboard. Who knows? The next video or the one after will have tons of splatter, I'm sure. So anyway, as always, I will have links below the video to my blog post and to the supply list. Those will be linked directly below. And I'll link to the 2 previous videos using all the snowflake goodness because they've been super fun. And as always, thank you guys so much for watching, for thumbs upping, commenting, subscribe if you haven't, and I'll see you all very soon in the next video. Bye.